Episode 6. On one occasion, I was reflecting on the Holy Trinity, on the essence of God. I absolutely wanted to know and fathom who God is. In an instant, my spirit was caught up into what seemed to be the next world. I saw an inaccessible light, and in this light, what appeared like 3 sources of light which I could not understand. And out of that light came words in the form of lightning which encircled heaven and earth. Not understanding anything, I was very sad. Suddenly, from this sea of inaccessible light came our dearly beloved Savior, unutterably beautiful, with his shining wounds. And from this light came a voice which said, "Who God is in his essence, no one will fathom, neither the mind of angels nor of man." Jesus said to me, "Get to know God by contemplating his attributes." A moment later, he traced the sign of the cross with his hand and vanished. Once I saw a big crowd of people in our chapel, in front of the chapel and in the street, because there was no room for them inside. The chapel was decorated for a feast. There were a lot of clergy near the altar, and then our sisters and those of many other congregations. They were all waiting for the person who was to take a place on the altar. Suddenly, I heard a voice saying that I was to take the place on the altar. But as soon as I left the corridor to go across the yard and enter the chapel, following the voice that was calling me, all the people began to throw at me whatever they had to hand: mud, stones, sand, brooms, to such an extent that I at first hesitated to go forward. But the voice kept on calling me even more earnestly, so I walked on bravely. When I entered the chapel, the superiors, the sisters, the students, and even my parents started to hit me with whatever they could. And so, whether I wanted to or not, I quickly took my place on the altar. As soon as I was there, the very same people, the students, the sisters, the superiors, and my parents all began to hold their arms out to me, asking for graces. And as for me, I did not bear any grudge against them for having thrown all sorts of things at me. And I was surprised that I felt a very special love precisely for those persons who had forced me to go more quickly to my appointed place. At the same time, my soul was filled with ineffable happiness, and I heard these words: "Do whatever you wish, distribute graces as you will, to whom you will and when you will." Then instantly the vision disappeared. Another time I heard these words: "Go to the superior and ask her to allow you to make a daily hour of adoration for 9 days. During this adoration, try to unite yourself in prayer with my mother. Pray with all your heart in union with Mary, and try also during this time to make the way of the cross. I received the permission, though not for a full hour, but only for whatever time was left after I had carried out my duties. I was to make this novena for the intention of my motherland. On the 7th day of the novena, I saw, between heaven and earth, the Mother of God clothed in a bright robe. She was praying with her hands folded on her bosom, her eyes fixed on heaven. From her heart issued forth fiery rays, some of which were turned around heaven, while the others were covering our country. When I told this and certain other things to my confessor, he replied these might really be coming from God, but they might also be an illusion. Because of my frequent changes, I did not have a permanent confessor, and besides, I had great difficulty in speaking of these things. I prayed ardently that the Lord would give me that great grace, that is, a spiritual director. But my prayer was answered only after my perpetual vows, when I went to Vilnius. The priest was Father Sopochko. God had allowed me to see him in an interior vision even before I came to Vilnius. If only I had had a spiritual director from the beginning, then I would not have wasted so many of God's grace. A confessor can help a soul a great deal, but he can also cause it a lot of harm. Oh, how grateful confessors should be about the work of God's grace in their penitent soul. This is a matter of great importance. By the graces given to a soul, one can recognize the degree of its intimacy with God.
Ofiaruj